Magic.me is the world's greatest school for magic, meditation, and mysticism. You can learn everything there, from chaos magic to hermeticism to meditation to how to supercharge your finances and take absolute control of your destiny. In short, you get all of the tools you need to turn chaos into beautiful, scintillating order and master your life. It's incredible. You've probably heard me talk about it on the show quite a lot. But check it out. It's growing fast. And I just want to say, if you're confused about where to start, because I have so many courses there, the Adept Initiative is the place to go. The Adept Initiative is the flagship course on magic.me, and it contains everything you need to know to master the most profound ancient techniques of changing your consciousness and the most modern and cutting-edge tools and systems for absolutely turning your life into a masterpiece. You are really going to dig it. Go check it out, and I will see you in class. It's magic.me, magick.me.
Yeah, my question actually revolves around meditation, and kind of the paradox of choice. I've done a lot of meditation for many years, mostly in Buddhism. A little bit of sort of Vedic TM type meditation. Did a 10-day Vipassana retreat, I think 2 years ago now, which is
great.
Really profound. So I don't know. It's just like, sometimes I sit down, I don't know what to do anymore because there's just so much. And I did do your hardcore meditation course, which I really liked. And so I guess I'm just really looking for some guidance and something to focus on. More recently, too, I found some, I guess, hermetic alchemy type groups where they're doing this sort of like staring at checkerboards or mirrors or, things like that, which are really interesting. Yeah.
Why are they staring at checkerboards?
I guess it's like, yeah. Well, I think part of it was a book by Jean Dubois, and it was about balancing the masculine and feminine, and it eventually turns gray. It's kind of Masonic in a way, too. Yeah,
okay. All right.
I don't know. It was interesting. I tried it and it was interesting. So, but yeah, I just wanted to just get some advice about where to focus and what your thoughts are.
I mean, look, this is something we all struggle with, to be perfectly honest with you, which is, this is why Trungpa wrote that book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, which I recommend everyone read if you haven't.
Yeah, I read it.
And it's just an issue. It's like we live in a time period where there's almost infinite information available. If you want to know about it, you can find out about it. It wasn't like that, certainly 100 years ago. We have the internet now. You can order any book on Amazon. We're not held in check by the resources of the local library anymore as we once were. And any information is accessible. Along with that, there's a whole cottage industry, of course, of people being spiritual teachers. That's nothing new. I mean, that's, certainly been around since Theosophy. It's big business. Anybody can claim to be a spiritual teacher. I was just reading, actually, I should send, there's a good PDF I was reading about this from the Gurdjieff Foundation about how to properly gauge spiritual teachers. But, it's like, so I live in California, right? So California, anybody can claim to be anyone can claim to be an alternative therapist, right? You don't need licensing for it. Anyone can claim to be a therapist. You can just say, oh, well, I'm doing hot rock therapy. Like you can make up some type of therapy. You don't need a license for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the same with firearms instruction. Anyone can be a firearms instructor. Can you imagine? There's no licensing process, let alone for spiritual teaching, which nobody even understands what it is. So that's kind of a tangent. But I guess what I'm saying is we have infinite options, and a lot of the options are bad. So it would be but even so, like discerning what is valid from what is not, that's already tough. And so obviously some of the things you mentioned, I don't know what type of Buddhist meditation you were doing, but certainly Vipassana, I 100% endorse. I think that's a brilliant technique. And also, obviously, my hardcore meditation, I endorse. That stuff all comes from Raja Yoga and Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And I've been trained by real gurus, in that. So I can back that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be pushing it, or offering it. But it's just that all that I'm teaching there is traditional Hindu meditation. I didn't change it. You don't have to learn it from me, But I don't know about staring at checkerboards, but that aside, you're talking about where should I put my focus between things that are valid techniques. And that's a real problem, right? I mean, this wasn't a problem, 200 years ago. Like, let's say if you were growing up in Japan 200 years ago, your choices of spiritual teaching would be rather limited.
Yeah, it'd be like Shinto or Zen, or
yeah. Exactly, and probably not even that, because a lot of that, I believe, is class determined, right? I could be wrong in that, but so and there's a real, people don't understand this. There's a real stress in having too much choice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's real. It's like you go to I always said, In-N-Out Burger?
We don't have them here in Vermont, but I know of them from Lebowski, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a California thing.
Yeah.
Well, but hey, better to live in Vermont than California. Jesus. So, In-N-Out, there's only 3 things on the menu: hamburger, cheeseburger, extra large, hamburger or cheeseburger. It's like that's it, right? 1, 2, 3. People love that. They love to not have to choose. It's like decision is hard. We now know decision fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. That's why Obama and Steve Jobs and various other people, like people in real executive roles, have very famously only worn one outfit. So they just have multiple copies of the same outfit, so they don't have to have that choice every morning, because you only have a limited number of decisions you can make a day before it's sapped out of your brain. So, right. So this is not an easy question, and so the easy part is, I mean, it's not easy, but it's easier, is whittling away what is not a valid technique, right? Mm-hmm. Now you have to choose between valid techniques, and people could stay there for forever. We'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and not make progress. Stephen Flowers, who's the great teacher of the Northern tradition, calls this the path of the squirrel. The squirrel Ratatosk in Norse mythology hops along the world tree from branch to branch. And he says that in the modern New Age marketplace, which is really what it is, let's be honest, the spiritual marketplace, I'm engaged in it as well. Everyone's buying and selling. This is America, right? It's how we do it here. There's good and bad things about that. The good thing is availability. The bad thing is half teachings or confusion of choice. And he says, the big spiritual publishers, all of whom I work with, so I'm not going to slag them off, but it's true. I mean, he says, like, they encourage people that the idea that they have to learn everything: tarot, I Ching, meditation, this, that, everything. It's like, well, you can't dig too deep if you try to learn everything. So, right. That said, number 1, to focus on meditation primarily is, in my mind, absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. Right? You can drop a lot of other bullshit if you're just focused on meditation. Right, because a lot of even ritual magic is a subsidiary practice to get you to be able to focus enough to meditate. Okay. Second is, you have access to valid teachings. That's good, right? So you're in the zone. You're getting closer to the bullseye, right?
Yeah.
The third is, what should you decide? I obviously can't make that decision for you.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions for you, though. One is, first question is, what do you want? What is your goal?
So some of the media thing that I'm, there's the surface level stuff. Like I'm a little bit ADD. It'd be great to have more focus. I mean, the big goal is I want to get as far as I can in this lifetime. As I have no excuses really. I live alone in a cob house in the middle of nowhere. I work. I'm actually a therapist myself. I work for a mental health agency and stuff. And I talked to you before. I'm a Mason too, so I'm involved in that.
I remember.
And so it's just like I have the time, I have the energy. It's just what I'm just really trying to figure out what best to like really focus on. And I started doing the Vipassana, body scanning type stuff a week ago after my dog died. And I was like, oh, I need to feel this. I'm not going to escape this with anything. And it was really helpful. It was hard. But it's always there. It's still there. I could pick it up like I'm right back in the course again. That's
a very spiritually mature attitude, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and
it's tough, man. It's life, right? It's like
right.
Tough. Yeah, but that's great. I mean, it's good for you, right?
Yeah, and then but then sometimes I feel like that doesn't really. I don't feel as focused when I do that too, in a way, just that practice. So then I look for something that's a little more narrowed down. And again, it's just like one book opens the other. I read something else. I'm fascinated by the symbolism and the everything. So yeah, I'm just kind of a leaf twisting in the wind, but those are my two goals. It'd be great to have a little more focus, and but also I really want to work and get as far as I can in this lifetime.
And when you say get as far as you can, what does that mean to you? I mean, like,
well, I don't know. I guess illumination, enlightenment,
okay.
As far as you can towards that, it's, yeah.
Okay. And what have you found that has been, for that goal, what have you found that has already been the most effective for you?
I guess what I have found, I guess I've had some pretty profound experiences in other meditations. I mean, when I first started sitting back in the 90s in Boston at a Shambhala center,
oh, wow.
That was just like really I was a pretty serious athlete then too. I was like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to push through it. And I really burst through some stuff. And then in the Vipassana course, I really had this profound sense of equanimity at one point where I actually felt like I physically got it. The end of the course, I was actually realized I was in this I was almost asleep while I was sitting there. It was so painful in the beginning, but then I was like, towards the end, I just kind of let go, and I realized I can be in this place where I was like just so relaxed. I was almost snoring, but I was sitting bolt upright and not moving,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's anything that's like truly effective on anything, or just surface level like cities. And like we said in the last call, just being in the Masonic Lodge and talking about, yard sales, it's just like tripped out by the symbolism, and just going deeper into that realm. So, and I think that what, like when we were talking last time, it's really felt like something profound. I didn't think anything of the Western tradition until literally like about a year ago, when I think I heard you on Duncan Trussell or something like that. And I was like, wow, there's a whole other...
Leading people astray. That's what I'm good for.
Yeah, right. So I was just under this impression like, oh, this is only the Eastern stuff that has it. We're corrupted here in the West. And so it's been this whole like, oh, wow, there's this whole thing I'm like rediscovering, and just in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I can share with you my personal experience, but it's not necessarily the truth, Yeah. I think we probably did Vipassana. It sounds like we did Vipassana the same year.
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was with you.
I had a profound experience with Vipassana.
Mm-hmm.
A 10-day retreat. My God, like,
yeah.
I would think about it for a bit, but I might recommend Vipassana as the best tool I have found for awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, I need to caveat that by saying I've already done so much practice and had awakening experiences within other traditions that for me, the 10-day Vipassana retreat was not as much breaking new ground as consolidating a lot that maybe a decade plus of work, for me it was consolidating and clearing out my mind enough that my mind could basically rebalance to the awakened state, right? And that it could clear out all the garbage, because you're sitting there for 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
So it was it was a return to form in a way. It was a return to what I already knew to be, original unconditioned awareness. And
right, I had a similar thing. I felt pretty ripe going into it, just with the practices that I'd done. Like some of the guys, like my roommate, when we could finally talk and we're talking about it, he spent the whole week just struggling, giving away his cell phone, and I was like blown away the whole time, So
yeah,
it was like,
right.
So I think and I was doing some pretty intense like somatic meditation before that. So it was just, it was really, I was pretty ripe going into it. It's kind of like what you're saying.
That's the interesting thing about Vipassana is like people come to it at their own level. It's like, it's like the main guy I was talking to was just like, I was just trying not to jerk off the whole time,
Right.
But But like for instance, for that reason, I would certainly not recommend Vipassana as an introductory practice. And a lot of people go into it as their first thing. And you can see there's stories all over the internet of people having psychotic breaks at Vipassana retreats and things like that. But then you read, it's like they never did any meditation before. It's like,
Right.
well, for me, coming off 20 years of meditation, it's like, and by the way, all the Crowley yoga stuff, the asana, like being able to hold asana for long periods of time, that turns out to not only come in handy for Vipassana, it's a prerequisite.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a mistake that, like Crowley got all of his yoga techniques from Alan Bennett, who was a Theravadan Buddhist monk in Ceylon at the time. It's like that's where he learned it from. It's the same tradition. So I think that you mentioned athleticism. I think that that's a very good way to look at it. It's like basically Vipassana, 10-day Vipassana retreat is a marathon. And you don't want to go into that untrained. You got to train for it, right? It's that simple. You can't you can't meditate for 10 days without being able to meditate for 10 minutes. And yet people try it and then they have a bad time, so you got to work up to that. So I think that Vipassana, at least my experience of it, is a profound consolidation. It allows you to, wherever you're at, it allows you to like defrag your hard drive, basically.
Yeah.
That was my experience of it. So I don't hesitate. Now, that said, I mean, I couldn't keep up the practice outside of the 10 days.
Yeah.
And I went, I could feel, even just driving back into Los Angeles, I could feel myself losing the awakened state. I could feel myself the very second I heard, looked at a cell phone and then like went to 7-Eleven on the way back with the people I drove away from. It's like, I could just like feel the fucking curtains starting to come down, re-entering the hive after being awakened, spending some time in awakened awareness, so it's like, that's the thing that the unglamorous thing that people don't tell you. It's like, it's not like you get to some point where you're enlightened and you're like, oh, like, everyone must, I get to wear orange robes all the time. And like, it's like getting a senior citizens discount card or something like that. Everything's on discount. You're special. Everyone's got to like bow down to you. It's like, enlightenment is modular, or it's a state. It's a mental state, right? It's like one of the great lessons of Vipassana is that everything is change. So even these mental states, in Buddhists talk about state chasing. It's like, correct, you can get into these enlightened states, but they will change. You will go back to being asleep and it will come and go. And it's like, the only constant is change, right? So it's like, so it becomes like hygienic, and hence daily meditation practice. Anyways, so here's what I'll tell you. It's like Western, if someone was to ask me, what are, to drop, if I can drop the bullshit for half a second, right? And only half a second, don't worry, it'll come back. I think at this point in my life, the three big, well, really in meditation, you've got two choices, Vipassana or Raja Yoga, right? Which is really the creme de la creme spiritual techniques of the Vedic system and of the Buddhist system. Now, ultimately, they're not that different, right? But they are different. They're different enough. Hermeticism is also a profound spiritual path, but it's more about guiding the way you live your life, right? And it's such a huge grab bag of practices. Hermeticism, I'm tempted to say in many ways, is an early foundational practice rather than a finishing vehicle, or to put that into English, after a certain point, you just realize you're going to need to make serious progress with serious meditation rather than dicking around with spheres and paths and Hebrew and lore and books and gods and demons and all this other stuff that is ultimately of the mind, right?
Right.
That said, the real benefit of Hermeticism is it doesn't remove you from the world, which the Eastern traditions do, and they're from cultures that are not Western, right? They come from different cultural assumptions. I've talked about that a lot before on the calls.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a non-answer, but I guess what I'm doing instead of answering your question is validating where you are and saying that you do have good choices, right? It's like you're in, it's like everything sounds like it's very well set up for you. You have access to real teaching. You have serious spiritual maturity and experience of real practice. You have organized your life in such a way that is certainly far easier for you to meditate than it is for me, you know, right? You've organized your life in such a way that you can pursue a yogi lifestyle, which is rare. You know, I mean, it's probably easier to do that in Vermont than fucking India. Or a lot of these places, you know, like Vermont, you know, seriously.
I got a long winter coming up.
Yeah, right. You know, and so I'm validating where you are. I think you're in a really, really good place, and I think that your intention to make really serious progress is very laudable. In terms of what specific practice should you do, I can't answer that. I'm some guy in LA. I can't answer that for you, but I can share with you I can basically mirror back to you that what I'm hearing from you. I can mirror back that in my experience, at least, I think the techniques you have access to are excellent. And so it just sounds to me like you're in a very good place. But in terms of what specific practice you should follow, I would be, I would sit with it. Such an asshole thing to say. No, I mean, I think that, I don't know, if you had to answer in the next 10 seconds, what would you say?
God, I think I just want to I think I want to find something that's going to do more for concentration at this time.
Okay.
You know, whether that's going back to stage 1 of Vipassana, or if it's just, you know, going between the eyebrows, or, you know, I've even read some of the Barden meditations, and, you know, just trying to, you know, focus and just get a little more focus that can carry over into some of the other things that I'm interested in, like some of the active imagination and, you know, things like that I've been studying.
So I can't give you a recommendation in that sense. And if your primary goal at this point is to develop focus, and I will caveat that by saying that, you know, focus is only half the battle. You need to put your intention, you know, right intention, as Buddhism says, you know, the focus should be on the path of enlightenment. But if you just want to develop focus, Raja Yoga all the way.
Okay.
Right. And Hermeticism, like you mentioned the Barden exercises, like, yeah, those Barden exercises are, by the way, those are fucking hard, right? I've tried to get through those so many times in my life, and I haven't been able to make very good progress on them. Probably because I don't live in upstate New York, right? Or excuse me, Vermont, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, if you have, you know, like a year of unstructured time to yourself, I mean, geez, what can you do with that stuff, right? I think that also the Barden stuff dovetails quite well with Raja Yoga. And it all dovetails eventually, but I would work with the stuff in the hardcore meditation course then, you know, because Raja Yoga is about holding single pointed focus, right?
Right.
If you can get your asana, pranayama, and dharana down, you can basically do anything, right? So I think that if you just need to develop your focus, I would just do that and not worry about what the ultimate be all end all practice is. You could even take Crowley's Liber E, just work through that. Work through that, or work through Barden if you want to be hermetic about it. But ultimately what you're doing is you're training your mind to focus on one thing at a time and not waver, right? That, I think, this is like, I posted on Twitter the other day. It's like, you look in the occult world, everyone's selling these like fucking $700 grimoires of like the ultimate secret of the black anus of Belial, bound in leather, only 50 copies published, signed with a unique sigil by the author, who's just some guy in North England. And it's like, you know, like I posted on Twitter. I later deleted it because, you know, I actually can be weirdly taciturn about what I put out into the public. But you know, I said, like, there's like all these 1,000 commodity grimoires. Why? You know, hermetic students would make better progress with a 5-page printout of Liber E and just committing to it than like $1 million worth of those fucking books. Or Barden's initiation into hermetics. Nobody's published a better book since then. It was put out what, in the 30s or the 50s, maybe. Nobody's done a better book on hermetics than that sense.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't, and it's still too hard. It's too hard for me, it's hard. Like, and I've been doing this my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, does it help to I've also been playing with like focusing on meditating on symbols as a part of like, because I am interested in the symbolism and the Kabbalah and things like that. I mean, is that a helpful thing to kind of incorporate into Raja Yoga, or
sure,
I guess
it's part of Raja Yoga.
Okay, yeah,
right. It is, and you can start with Tattva meditation. It's the classic Golden Dawn one. It's in Library E as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would just work
using like hermetic symbols or whatever, or just anything, right?
Well, that you have to be careful with, because the symbols you're charging them. They're sigils, right?
Yeah.
So the tattvas, for instance, are the 5 symbols of the elements. But you got to watch yourself with that too, because you're working with elemental energies. The tattva, meditating on the tattvas, the 5 tattvas, is the internal component of the banishing rituals. Or the banishing rituals, you're working with elemental energy outside the body. If you're meditating on the tattvas, you're doing it internally through meditation, right? They're complementary practices. That's why both of those are foundational practices within the Golden Dawn and its attendant branches, right? Because they're part of the same process. Barden's work in the same way is also that first book, Initiation into Hermetics, same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first task of the Hermetic magician is working with the 5 elements, right? Because you can't, once you get that, then you can deal with the planets and the astrology and all that, and then the tree of life and all that, until you ultimately realize, Jesus, what is all this shit? By that time, you're well into Enochian, and you're like, Christ, I should have spent my life learning accounting or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, if you just want to learn focus, do either Library E or Initiation into Hermetics.
Yeah.
Right? And you can do, but this is your, pick something. This is apparently your
that's the part. Yeah.
First part of focusing is choosing what to focus on.
Right.
But I think that I can make a meta point on this, that and P.S. This is why I would say not only I teach magic like this, but that magic has been taught like this for at least 80 years. No, more than 80 years. Probably 100 years, at least 100 years, right? So, certainly since Crowley, right? It's like the point is, you have to remember Crowley came out of the Theosophical era when people were just like babbling about fucking ascended masters and all this garbage, right? It's the same as the New Age stuff now. And Crowley brilliantly pointed out, it's like, no, the point is to focus your mind. It doesn't matter what you focus it on ultimately, it doesn't matter what you focus it on, but meaning it's not about dogma, it's about the process of cultivating mental clarity from the get-go, right? So for that, Raja Yoga and Hermetic symbol meditation are the prescribed practices. And I can say with 1,000% confidence for everybody on this call and everyone I have taught and everyone I will teach, that the first step should be learning to focus the mind. Once you can get laser-like focus down, you can then go into any branch of magic, whether it's Hermeticism or Raja Yoga or Vipassana or the Northern tradition or whatever the fuck, and kick ass, because your mind is already trained. Right, and during that process, you will have developed the discrimination and discernment to not end up where most people are, which is believing that the things of their mind are real, and then living their life in a New Age delusion world. Because during the meditation practice, you're able to cut down through the layers of the mind and say, okay, well, that's just thinking. Okay, well, that's just the vision. That's just the dreaming astral state. Well, okay, this is the archetypal state. Okay, well, this is actually what mental silence is like. And this is what samadhi is like, So, and at that point, you have zero interest in the astral gobbledygook of most of these practices. So I would say that if your goal is to develop your mind, that is an excellent goal. And I think that should be your goal. It should be everyone's goal. And it is, you can't take that as your goal without knowing what your ultimate destination is. And it is a necessary, not only an important, but a necessary foundational step. By the way, I really recommend also for everyone on this call, in the Equinox, Crowley's essay, the psychology of hashish, not because it's about cannabis indica. He was one of the very first writers about it, not because of that, but because he includes an extremely well explicated, he wrote it under a pen name, but he includes an extremely well explicated Theravada Buddhist map of mental states, jhanas, which is critical. It is fucking critical to understand that stuff for anyone engaged in these practices, because you need to be able to discern between what is the process of the mind focusing and what is real. So that's a rant. I hope some of that's helpful. But
yeah, no, it is. It's grounding it. Yeah, it's good to just, I just need to figure out one thing to focus on, and then that idea of being discriminating between what I'm working with. I'm just fascinated by it all right now, so it's just.
Well, tell you what, pick something arbitrarily.
Yeah.
There's your first step.
Down at the wall, right?
Just pick a practice, even if it's wrong. Like, here's a great example of this. It's like, I love this story. I think it was Patton, right, in World War II. It's either Patton, no, it was Norman Schwarzkopf, right, General Schwarzkopf. There's this story about he is sitting there and Schwarzkopf was general during Iraq One, correct?
Yeah, he was a head general then.
Who was his counterpart during Vietnam? I'm having a brain blank.
Was that Colin Powell? Are you talking about?
No. Vietnam era.
Oh, the counterpart, Giap
McNamara or somebody like that.
Okay. Oh, the main general in Vietnam.
Yeah, the main general in Vietnam.
Yeah, McNamara.
Anybody? McNamara. I believe it was McNamara. It was either McNamara or Schwarzkopf in during wartime. Somebody had brought him, basically, like they brought him. It's like, okay, like these are our two plans on how to proceed with whatever this branch of the war. Our intelligence analysts have spent 10 years on each of these plans, working out every single aspect of this. And, we've run all these analytics, we've run all these numbers, and we've war gamed out all these different various scenarios, and we can't choose what is the best course of action. Which one should we do? Can you review these, please? Think it through, get back to us and give us an order on what to do. And he's like, and he just points to one and he says, do that. I'm like, what? You didn't read them? He's like, I don't have to read them. It's like, you guys spent 10 years on them. They're just fucking pick one and do it. Like, right. I'm ordering you, do that one, and you'll find out if it's the right one while you're doing it. And if it's the wrong one, you'll correct it in progress. But somebody's got to make a goddamn decision about this, right? And you haven't been able to. So just do that one. And they're like, he's like, it's an order. I'm like, okay. So then they did it and it worked out. So I would just say, just, ask yourself, if I had 10 minutes to decide, or I had 10 seconds to decide what would I do, pick it and then stick with it for at least 3 months and then see where you're at. It's like, because you have to be able to cut off options at some point. Otherwise you can't focus. That's the first step of focusing before, it's like, but like I said, if you can just focus your mind, it doesn't really matter ultimately what the practice is. If you can just get your mind focused, everything else, it's like the same. It's like, if you can master one branch, the other ones open up, but you can't master them all at once. You got to pick one until you're good with it. And then you can look at other practices. But anyway, so choose, make a decision. I know it's hard. But do it arbitrarily. Or do it arbitrarily. Throw a tarot. Do a tarot reading if you want. Throw dice on it. Leave it to the tarot. But pick something and stick with it, because that's your first test of focus, right? That's part of the focusing process.
Yeah. All right. I think I'll go with Bard, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Relieve me from the karma of choosing for you. Very good. Let me know how it goes. That's a tough one. And
I will.
I mean, what can you say? You can't say anything bad about Barden, right?
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they took him out too early.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good luck.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Jason.
You're welcome.